What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Word on Woodward presented by Rehmann. Empower your purpose with Rehmann. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday. Make sure you turn on your live notifications so you don't miss a single second of the Word on Woodward. But if you guys can't watch the entire show today, we do have a YouTube page for you to check out. You can catch up on past interviews, and we also have the show in podcast form. So check out Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Again, we've got the Word on Woodward YouTube page where you can catch up on past interviews or listen to the show in its entirety as a podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. I want to let everybody know that there will be a blood drive held at Little Caesars Arena on Tuesday, August 4th. So that is this coming Tuesday. It will be from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And you got to schedule a time, so you can schedule your time at redcrossblood.org. Again, that is this coming Tuesday, August 4th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. You guys, we have a very busy show for you today, and we're going to have Dan Dickerson on for the mailbag. We've got interviews with the Tigers Clubhouse manager, Jim Schmeichel, Wings senior content producer, Dana Wakiji, a returning Word on Woodward guest, and the Free Press sports columnist, Jeff Seidel. And of course, for the headliner, we are going to have Johnny Kane joining Art FSD's reporter. So a lot of fun today for you guys. And you can see I'm at the ballpark. There's a lot going on down here. Great show ahead of us. So without further ado, let's bring in Art Regner, our co-host. Art, how you doing today? I heard you went without the dry shampoo, so I got to see how the hair is looking. Oh, it's still looking pretty good. You're looking pretty good.
Well, it's going to be a straight dry today. So as the show progresses, my hair will kind of poof out a little bit. I actually shaved. I cut myself. So just, typical morning for me. Getting ready for the Word on Woodward, and I'm all set. I'm ready to go. The field looks beautiful behind you. The Tigers are playing well. Hockey's going to come back in some way, shape, or form. So, hey, it doesn't get much better than this.
Art, speaking of the Tigers playing well, that's a good segue into our Big Three presented by Chevy. And our first topic of the day, we're going to talk about the Tigers game last night. As you said, they're hot, and it wasn't any different last night. Let's take a look at the highlights. We're going to pick it up in the top of the third. And at the beginning of this game, Art, I think Tigers fans were a little worried. We thought it was going to be all Royals. They've got the 2-0 lead, and here's Franco with an RBI single at the top of the third. That gives the Royals a 3-0 lead. Now we're still in the third. This is Ryan McBroom with another RBI single. That would put KC up 4-0. Like I said, we thought things might be getting out of hand here for the Tigers, but here's the bottom of the third. You've got Jacoby Jones, probably the MVP of the game, with a double right here. A run would score later in that inning on a sacrifice fly, putting the Tigers on the board. And now we're going to take a look at the bottom of the fifth. You've got Nico Goodrum with a sacrifice fly, deep to left field there, all the way to the warning track. That run will score. Now the Tigers cut the Royals lead to 2. Jonathan Scope, a guy that we've talked about. We're in the bottom of the fifth, and Scope nails this one right field. It was nearly robbed. It was so close to being caught, but it bounces off the glove and it goes over the fence. So that is a 2-run shot for Jonathan Scope. That's his first home run of the season. And we've got a tie ball game at Comerica Park. And I mentioned this earlier. Jacoby Jones might have been the MVP last night. And here it is, his home run, third home run of the season, third hit of the night. And that would be the game winner for the Tigers with a final of 5-4. Look at that swing. Jacoby Jones is really swinging well right now. Like I said, that was his third home run of the season, and he was 3 for 3 on the night with an RBI and 2 runs. Art, you said the Tigers are playing well to start this thing off. What did you think of last night's game?
Well, yeah, a couple of things come to mind. I mean, they struck out a lot again. They only had 4 hits, but I think it came down to bullpen and power. I mean, they're hitting, they hit 2 home runs, that accounted for 3 of their runs. They're never out of a ball game. When you have the power, and that was what we've been talking about all season long. If every batter practically, or certain guys are hitting their groove and they can hit home runs, you're really never out of the game. And I think we saw that last night. I was a little bit worried, I guess, a little bit about Matt Boyd's pitching line, just because, he didn't walk anybody, but he had 6 strikeouts and he gave up 4 earned runs. But it seemed to me that Matt Boyd was not out there pitching as much as he was thinking about it. And I thought he was trying to aim the ball. But if that's the biggest worry the Tigers have right now is what's wrong with Matt Boyd, then they don't have a real huge worry in my book. I think Matt Boyd's going to figure it out. He'll get it together. It's the type of player he is. He works tirelessly. So I guess cause of concern maybe a little bit, but overall, again, Tigers aren't out of ball games. I think that's the thing I look at it, because they're able to hit home runs. They hit 2 more last night. That gives them 12 on the season. Gosh only knows when they hit 12 last year during the season. Probably gained like 40 or something. And I just think it's a good sign. And an opposite field home run, nothing cheap about that. I was looking at Scope's home run, and I thought Muirfield, who has been a Tiger killer, I'm wondering. He was trying to make the play, and Jones's swing, it's just perfect. You can tell that he's in the groove. I wonder if Muirfield would have let that ball go if it wouldn't have hit the yellow line, making it a home run, and bounced off and became a double. But, I just thought that was really, really close. And at first, when you look at it in the naked eye, you think, okay, he knocked the ball into the stands. But maybe the trajectory, maybe that was going to be a home run all the time. That's why he went up to catch it. But, that was really, really close. But when you're winning ball games and things are going your way, things like that happen. Good teams make their own luck, so to speak. And, that was, and ignited the Tigers. Scope started off a little slow. Now he's coming on. Got to get Crohn's back going back up. But Cincinnati's coming to town after today. Who knows? He seems to like Reds pitching. So it's falling together. The bullpen is pitching very, very well. There's been a few bumps. Starting pitching has been pretty good for the most part. And let's be honest, Michael Fulmer is only going to get stronger. And, and Daniel Norris is eventually going to come back and be added to this lineup. And, and somewhere down the line, we could see Casey Mize as well. So at this point, it's early. You can't sit here and, I can't be doing cartwheels down Woodward just yet. But, it's been a good start of the season, and I'm pretty encouraged by it.
I might go ahead when I leave here and do a couple cartwheels down Woodward for you, Art, okay?
Well, I know you can do that. Because as we know, one thing about you, you are an athlete. So, yeah. So, maybe you can bring a soccer ball and kind of kick in between cars or something down Woodward, too. You could do it.
I could. You're right. I do want to make a correction for you guys. That was Jonathan Scope's second home run of the season. I said that was his first, but he's got 2, and it was a beauty. It was a great game for him and a great game for the Tigers. We're going to stick to talking about last night's game for our second topic of the Big Three, which is our Clubhouse update. And of course, for this one, we're going to bring in Carly Johnston, who's got more on last night's matchup.
Thanks, Daniela. I know you guys were just talking about the highlights. You and are both given a little bit of a breakdown of the game last night. As we know, the Tigers are coming off of a huge comeback win last night. And as you just mentioned, they're 4-2 on the season, winning their first 2 series, which is incredible start for the Tigers. By the way, I just like to point out that I called it after they lost their first game of the series against the Royals. I said they'll make a comeback and win the next 2. And look at them now. How impressive. Anyway, Ron Gardenhire, years of the game, to the media. I know. I'm telling you, pat myself on the back. I got to do it.
Right.
So
it's not the first time, Carly. It's not the first time.
And it won't be the last, Art. Let's break down last press conferences between the Tigers manager and players. So first up, we're going to talk about Matt Boyd. He was the starting pitcher again for the game last night. And it wasn't the worst game for Boyd, but again, it wasn't the most impressive game for him. He's had kind of a rough start this season. He didn't allow any home runs or walks, but he had 9 hits in the game. So he was asked, what are some things that he's looking to improve on? And here's what he had to say about that.
For instance, there's a handful of things I can't control. A handful of things that I know that I can continue to do. One thing that I was just running away from my fastball a little bit. Fastball was going a little bit this way at times instead of up and down. And, I know how to continue to make that adjustment. Pick up my tempo. Tempo is one thing that, if my tempo, so much benefits from having, good tempo in between pitches. When you have that good tempo in between pitches, it carries over to your delivery,
Tempo, one big thing to work on for him. And speaking of pitchers, Brian Garcia, as we know, made his first major league debut last night, throwing a clean 7th inning and going home with his first win. Incredible. Congratulations to him. And on to the offensive play of the game. The Tigers were looking good. Jonathan Scope, Nico Goodrum, some guys you just talked about, helping put points up on the board. But I can't help but talk about the MVP of the game last night, in my opinion, Jacoby Jones. I mean, his defensive play was great, and Jones went 3 for 3 at the plate last night. Let's hear his comments from the game.
Obviously, it felt great. I mean, we were battling. Our pitching staff kept us in the game. They were grinding, getting outs. We were having some good at-bats early on, but it just didn't pay off. And then scratch a few runs here and there, and that was huge. And then that home run was big time. And then our bullpen did a tremendous job as they've been doing the last couple games. So, I mean, just got to keep it up.
As you heard him say there, that home run he hit was kind of a pivotal point in the game, put us in the lead, so that was great to see. And the Tigers kick off their second series against the Cincinnati Reds tonight. Hopefully they can repeat that success that they had against them last week. Fingers crossed. I'm optimistic.
I am too, Carly. And something else I'm optimistic about. We need to get Art a cutoff shirt like Jacoby Jones was wearing in his press conference, and you should wear that for the next Word on Woodward show, Art. Show off those guns.
We need to see it. Sun's up.
Obviously, I work out, as you know, very, very much. And yeah, give me the Jacoby Jones t-shirt look. I would definitely wear it. One thing I do want to say about Jacoby Jones, and I don't know, and I know that both of you cover the room, and I know we shouldn't be mixing sports a lot, but he's kind of that junkyard dog mentality that the Tigers talked about. That that's how their team is. Well, I think he's the ultimate junkyard dog. And when I think ultimate junkyard dog, I think Tyler Bertuzzi. I think they're kind of cut from the same cloth, And so if I start calling Jacoby Tyler and Tyler Jacoby, I want fans to know why. I mean, he's got a little bit of bird in him, I think, or vice versa. So and you need players like that, obviously. And remember, Jacoby Jones is hitting out of the 9 slot. He's the he's the number 9 hitter. He was 3 for 3. They only had 4 hits. The other one was Scope's 2-run homer. So I mean, again, if you can get that kind of production, and Miggy's going to get going, and Nico Goodrum, is starting to find his groove. Crone's a real player, as we know. Scope. I mean, you look at a Candelario. Defensively, he's been great. He's going to pick it up with the stick. 1 through 9, especially with Jacoby hitting in that 9 slot, the Tigers, they're pretty formidable right now, and hitting for power. I cannot stress how being able to hit home runs keeps you in a ball game and changes the complexion of a ball game. Look, Kansas City had a 4-0 lead last night, right? So the Royals are probably feeling pretty good. Yeah, like we won 14-6, and we can keep getting on this, and Boyd, they're the ace of their staff is, he's struggling a little bit out there. He's giving up some hits. So they're feeling good, and bam, bam, bam. Before you know it, the game was 4-4. I mean, how quickly did that game become 4-4? Very quickly because of the home run. So, a lot of positives for the Tigers early on this season.
Yeah, I think they have a little bit of confidence, a little bit of swagger starting the season off. So hopefully that'll keep the ball rolling, and they'll keep racking in those wins.
Carly,
definitely. Thank you, Carly.
I mean, your confidence, your swagger. I mean, these catching up with Carly's. I mean, the Tigers get up there and they say, "Wow, I'm invigorated." Yeah, I'm invigorated. Boy, that Carly Johnson, she's got me going. I'm ready.
Well, I'm looking forward to hopefully tonight, but I'll catch you guys later in the show.
Thank you, Carly. And you guys, Carly will be joining us later in the show. Make sure you're sending in your questions and comments wherever you are watching. Drop those in the comments. Carly will be looking for them. Now moving on to our third topic of today's Big Three. The NHL playoffs they're just 2 days away now. Saturday, the NHL will drop the puck on the 2020 playoffs. We've seen some exhibition games now. I'm amped up. We've got baseball going. We're going to have hockey going as well. I don't even know what I'm going to do with my weekends now. There's going to be so many sports to watch.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you look at it, and I watched a bunch of these preseason games, and for some reason, I think the games in Edmonton seem to be better. It's better pace, or I don't know, the environment. Nothing against Toronto, and I'm not saying that. And it would be crazy because they're both stadiums essentially look the same. I've been pretty impressed. I mean, and you know what? It's a hodgepodge. We've seen everything. We've seen teams that aren't known for score goals. Connor Hellebuyck was great last night in his game against Vancouver. Certainly the Canucks are a good young team, and they have good young legs, but they couldn't get it past Hellebuyck, and so that's going to be a factor. Chicago shut out St. Louis, and St. Louis is one of the favorites. So again, I think the most interesting thing is that you can't really read too much into one exhibition game that they're going to play, and there's some more today, and then the season, as you said, Daniela, starts Saturday. Is that they kind of ease into the season, and they were in playoff mode when the season was on pause in early March, but now the next game they play is a real game, and it's a playoff game. I don't care that play-in game, all that. These are the playoffs. I mean, I think even the league now has admitted this is a 2014 playoff. Each one of these teams that is going to play beginning on Saturday has a chance to win the Stanley Cup. They're 3 out of 5 series. They're going to be intense. So, and I think the pace of hockey has been really good. I think we're going to see a pretty good tournament here, and I'm really looking forward to it. But as far as saying, boy, this team looked good or this team looked bad, I don't think you can, because I think after a while, when a team falls behind, then I think the coach changes his philosophy. Is like, okay, we need some good habits. Let's work on our power play, or let's do power. I mean, they're not trying to win per se as much as they're trying to work and modify something or tweak something. But then on Saturday, it's all for real, and that's when it's really going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun, Art. And later in the show, Dana Wakiji is going to join us. We'll talk more about those NHL playoffs. That wraps up our Big Three for today. A big thank you to Chevy for presenting the Big Three here on the Word on Woodward. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. As I mentioned, you guys, Dana Wakiji is going to join us later. We have Jeff Seidel and Johnny Kane later in the show. But right now, we're going to bring in Dan Dickerson for the mailbag delivered to you by Little Caesars. Dan, how you doing? We've got a few Tigers games in the books here. Getting back in your rhythm?
I know. We're finally talking about real baseball games, not intra-squad games. So, yeah, it's been fun. It was good to get a few of the road games out of the way in terms of just learning how to call a game off a monitor, getting used to it. And then it's so good to have the team back home. So, yeah, it's great to have the season underway. There's been a lot going on, obviously, as you can try to play through a pandemic, but we're playing baseball.
Dan, the first question I have for you is, how was your hot dog out of your hot dog maker that was gifted to you by Art? Actually, answer this one first, Dan.
Look at this.
Look
how beautiful that is. Look at this happy guy eating hot dogs. We do not have food in the booth. Hold on. We do not have food in the booth. I have to admit, Art, I was skeptical. How good could it be making a hot dog in a toaster? Put it down. Art includes a note, a master tip. You get the hot dog out after one round, put it back in the other way, then put the bun in. You get a pretty crispy hot dog. The bun's perfect. We have no food in the press box. We have this. It's awesome.
That's amazing.
Me, I'm a selfless guy, Double D. I'm always thinking for the benefit of others, and I'm just glad I could help. I mean, obviously, I can tell you've been eating some hot dogs. Looks like you put on a couple of pounds, but it's well worth it. And seriously, I'm not getting paid by the hot dog maker company, but I was skeptical too. And and the one thing about it too is they have a tray underneath after. I was at first when I first started, but now I'm addicted to the thing. they have this little tray underneath the hot dog maker, and then you can tell that, boy, these things are really good for me because they're all kind of the drippings and stuff from what's coming out of the hot dog. And have you cleaned the tray yet, Double D? Have you cleaned the tray yet underneath?
No,
because you're going to want to do that.
I figured this is just seasoning, right?
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, when you get it, grab it, pull it out, pull that little red tray out underneath. And, it's kind of like a toaster, as you said, when you clean the crumbs out of that tray, because toast and all that stuff.
Once every couple years.
Well, you know what? Maybe I should do this too. You should probably pull that thing out and then take your hot dog and then kind of roll it in its own juices and then eat it. I'll bet you that will be a very flavorful little morsel. I can bring mine out. I know I'm kind of probably mixing you both up, but let Dan answer his question about Matt Boyd, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Even though hot dogs are always the most important thing that we talk about. Let's get to the first mailbag question, you guys. Josh from Washington Township asks, "What did you see from Matt Boyd last night?" And Dan, that one is for you.
I think we saw his post-game comments. He kind of touched on it. It's amazing how when pitchers they don't get into the rhythm of the game and they're working slowly and their pace is not good. I mean, Ron Gardenhire talks about this all the time for a reason, because he sees it. When you don't have that good rhythm and you're sitting back there taking way too much time between pitches, the whole feel of the game slows down. You're shaking off your catcher. As he said, I don't want to see bobbleheads out there. I think all of that matters. And I'll be surprised if he doesn't make the adjustment. What I saw last night, the pluses, the final line was not good. The pluses that we saw, that curveball right there, he finally broke that out. He threw 5 and none after the first inning in his first start. He threw 10 last night. He added in 8 changeups. That's 18 pitches, and he threw, I think, 7 changeups and curveballs in his first start. Those are the pitches that are going to be absolutely critical for Matthew Boyd if he's going to be as good as we think he is. Remember how good he was to start through 12 starts last year. The home runs really were the only difference in the second half. This is a guy who he finished strong, no walks, 6 strikeouts, good sign. And I agree with Art. If he does it, he's the least of your worries right now. He'll figure it out. I'll be surprised if he doesn't rip off several good starts in a row.
That's good to hear, Dan. Glad that you think you saw some improvement in Matt Boyd last night. And like you said, it's always great to hear from him that he kind of pinpointed exactly what he thinks he needs to work on. And hopefully his next start, we can see him improve even a little bit more. Now, Art, your question 2, Alan from Pontiac asks, how cool is this? Now, Ethan Bear has his name spelled in Cree to celebrate his indigenous heritage. I think that is super cool. I wouldn't have known what it said without the caption, obviously, but that is so awesome. I think it's great to celebrate all of the different ethnicities out there and everybody's heritage.
Well, certainly, if you've watched Canadian TV your whole life, like I have, and I'm sure Double D has as well, because Canadian TV when we were growing up was a lot more liberal than American TV. And they had very interesting television shows on, and I used to watch it quite often. And I know that the indigenous people in Canada, they have always treated their indigenous people with respect. I think that this is National Indigenous Month in Canada, and it's just a way of paying homage to the native peoples of this land. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And the thing is that, at this time of year, Ethan Bear wouldn't have been able to do it because there would have been no hockey. So I think it's a really, really nice touch and a way to honor his heritage. And, and I think for the National Hockey League that, is trying for diversity and hockey is for everyone. I think this was also a really good step.
Agree with you for sure, Art. And we'll move on to our third question. This one is for you, Dan. Phil from Westland asks, with Soto and Cisnero pitching well so far, who benefits more, the starting pitchers or Jimenez?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, you think, first of all, about the back end of the bullpen. When a manager can figure out who he has to protect leads late in games, and there are a lot of question marks coming in beyond Farmer and Jimenez, then I think he feels his bullpen is coming together. And right now with Soto and Cisnero And you have to add Brian Garcia to the mix because they love that arm. He hasn't pitched a whole lot yet, but he's going to be in the mix. Stuff looked really good last night. I think the back end of the bullpen is shaping up nicely, and that helps those guys. I think it also helps the starting pitchers, because if you have a bullpen that's good at protecting leads and is doing a job by putting up zeros, and this bullpen right now in 2 days has put up 8 consecutive perfect innings, 24 up, 24 down, then you know that you maybe have a little room for margin for error in terms of it's not like you're going to ease up, but you also know that on a day when you're maybe off a little bit, like Matt Boyd was last night, your bullpen can pick you up. And that's not a small thing either. So it really goes both ways. But more than anything, for Ron Gardenhire and his staff to figure out who are my guys to protect leads late, beyond the 2 that we knew coming in, Farmer and Jimenez, that's a big deal. And right now you've got the makings of it. I can't say enough about what we've seen from Gregory Soto in the early going. I mean, this guy has been incredible. The big question with him was, could he throw the ball over the plate with any consistency? Could he get swings and misses? We knew about the power arm. Now he's locating at 98 down and away. He's got a slider that's an absolute wipeout pitch that he got Gordon with there. And the fastball is just electric. I mean, when you spot 98, it's like a completely different pitcher from last year. So that's exciting. It's only a few innings so far, but it's so different. The strike throwing is so good that you sit up and take notice, and it's a big development for the bullpen.
Tigers bullpen definitely seems to be shaping up and heading in the right direction. You guys, let's look ahead for this last question here. This one is Jim from Milford, and he asks, with Cincinnati back in town tomorrow, do you guys see a similar series that we saw last weekend? Do you think it will be similar? Do you think Cincinnati's going to come out any different? Art, we'll start with you.
Okay, before I answer that question, here is the hot dog maker, and there's a little tray underneath right here. It comes out, and you better look at this pretty soon, Dan, or else it's going to start to smell. You have to clean this thing out. This is because it's like a drip pan, for a broiler or something. So it just slides in and out. My suggestion, clean it. You have to clean it. But they are delicious and they're wonderful. Now, speaking about the Reds coming back here, what's gonna happen? Will they be red hot? No pun intended, because we just talked a little bit about hot dogs. The Reds themselves, obviously they're a pretty good hitting team. They've got good pitching. They're obviously going to want to be, and this is not a knock against the Tigers, but I think Cincinnati was feeling pretty good about itself. We're going to open up the season against Detroit. The Tigers, again, showing that power and good pitching, but bullpen-wise, took 2 out of 3. I don't know. I think the one thing that I've learned covering professional sports over the years is that sometimes there's a pattern, but this early in the season, the way things have fallen, I really don't know. Would I like to see the Tigers take 2 out of 3 from Cincinnati? Yeah, I think they're capable, but is it going to be a slugfest? Is it going to be a pitcher's duel? I'm kind of leaning on pitcher's duel at this point, and I think that the home run ball could be the difference. Whichever team hits the most home runs this weekend is probably going to end up being the team that's going to win this series. And as we saw last night, 4 hits by the Tigers, 2 of them home runs. They get 3 runs off them, win the game 5-3. I think at this point, the Tigers are playing a power game. They have power arms and they have power at the bat. So that's what I guess that's the way I look at it. I don't know how Double D feels.
I'll start right away with the start. I'll start with the starting pitching in Cincinnati. The Tigers will not see Luis Castillo, and they will not see Sonny Gray, the 1-2 starters last weekend in Cincinnati. Part of the reason the Tigers struck out 46 times. Those guys were dynamite. So they won't see the 1-2 starters. They will see, it looks like at least, Tyler Mahle, who's got a good arm, and Wade Miley, who has not pitched well going back to last September and in his first start for his new team. So that's if not a break, it certainly is different from last weekend and a plus, I think, in the Tigers column, if that's how it shakes out over the weekend. The other thing is the Tigers hit the Reds bullpen. The bullpen for the Cincinnati Reds, it looks like, because they get so many swings and misses, one of the better bullpens in the National League this year. but they hit that bullpen on Saturday and Sunday and got to them for big home runs late. And to me, that was a big deal. The bullpen has not been performing that well for Cincinnati. They gave up a bunch of runs late to the Cubs. They held on for the win yesterday, but gave us 7 runs late. So that, to me, is something to watch this weekend. And Tiger bats need to get going a little bit in terms of the team batting average is under 200 right now. There are a few bats that need to get going. So look for Miggy, Goodrum, Candelario, especially to get those bats going to lift this offense. But to Art's point, the home run power has been impressive. 12 home runs through 6 games, Art. In the notes today,
yep.
It took the Tigers 21 games last year to reach 12 home runs. They did it in 6 this year. That's the big difference in this offense.
Well, going back to what Double D was saying, I was going to, if I remember, and I'm going back to ancient times now, where the baseball World Series games were still played in the afternoon. But the 1968 Tigers, I believe their collective batting average was like 230, but they hit a lot of home runs. Right. So and because pitching was a lot different. I don't know if it was the mound. Double D's the baseball historian here, but back then power was the name of the game. I can't help but harken back to those days when I've watched the Tigers. These first 6 games that, this is a power team, and they weren't a power team last year, but they can hit the home run. Again, I think if you can hit the home run and you can get some guys on base and get some good at bats and work the count, then, you're not out of any ball game. You're just not out of any ball game because you always have that home run in the back of your pocket or the back of your arsenal, so to speak. I guess Double D got. I think the Double D just didn't agree with me, and it said, "I'm over. I'm done. I'm history. I'm out of here."
He was just sick of listening to you, Art. He's like, "All right, yep, game over. Got to go clean my hot dog maker."
There you go. That's exactly what I was thinking. That's where that smell's coming from. I got to clean my hot dog maker. I got to clean the drip tray or the drip pan, whatever it is.
All right, Art, enough of this hot dog talk. Let's talk some pizza. Little Caesars delivering the mailbag right here on the Word on Woodward. Little Caesars is now the official delivery or pizza delivery of the NHL. Super exciting news for Little Caesars. And of course, they're proudly presenting their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try their no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars today. Now, you guys, you can have hot dogs while you're watching baseball, but now when you're watching hockey this Saturday, you got to make sure that you're ordering some Little Caesars pizza through their delivery service. That's a great thing. I'm definitely going to get myself a cheeser and enjoy some hockey this Saturday. And of course, we're going to talk some hockey with Dana Wakiji later in the show. Jeff Seidel will be joining us to talk more about the Detroit Tigers, and Art will sit down with FSD's Johnny Kane. And of course, more Tigers talk there too. A lot of Tigers today, you guys. And like I said, ahead of the NHL starting this weekend. Right now, though, Carly sat down with a very, very interesting guest for this edition of Catching Up with Carly. So let's give it to her.
That's right. It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. And today I'm joined by Detroit Tigers Clubhouse manager, Jim Schmekel. How's it going, Jim?
It's going. It's busy, but it's going good.
Absolutely. I know you have one of the busiest jobs on the team. What does your day-to-day look like right now?
It's really like a normal season. We a big part of our operation is food because the players are here so long, all day long. We have 3 meals for them, and we have a real neat app where the players actually can order their breakfast, their lunch, their dinner for day games on their phone in the morning or even the night before, and they can order their food all day long on this app, and it shoots into the kitchen and it shoots into the kitchen upstairs, and they can basically get, I think, pretty much anything you could want. And that's a big part. We get here, we start working on that the minute we arrive at the stadium. In addition to that, there's usually a change once or twice a week in terms of personnel. Dave McKay got sent out to the Toledo taxi squad, and then they brought Anthony Castro back. So we sort of have to switch all the the jerseys around and the jackets. Make sure the shoes are there. At any time there's a change, and then we're also in charge of maintenance in the clubhouse in terms of like vacuuming, garbage, kitchen, keeping it healthy and clean. The stairwell down to and from the dugout. So the guys not only that work for me help with the food, they're also doing bat boy duty. A couple of the guys are in the stands. There's nobody in the stands, so they're retrieving baseballs that might go in the stands during batting practice and during the game. And like I said before, go ahead.
So I'm a little jealous about the food, but tell us more about the preparation for games and batting practices.
Well, like today, the players were told to come in at 3:30 because it's supposed to rain. I have no idea if it rained or didn't rain. But each day that we have a home 7:00 game, there's batting at 4:00. Our bat boy and two of the guys that are helping on the field come in, and they have to prepare like coolers of water, coolers of Gatorade, and with the virus, they have to wear gloves, of course, a mask. I have my mask in case anybody's asking. But they set the dugout up, and we have to set the coolers up so that the coolers are open, so that not everybody's not touching the coolers. They don't want a lot of different touches by each player's hands on things like the cooler. Helmets are cleaned every night. Like before the first game, we have a spray. We spray on the helmets, and the bat boy and his guys help do that before they put them into their slots in the dugout. And then after they hit, he has a spray bottle of the bat boy where he sprays the helmet, puts it back in the slot. And when anybody uses something and they go to the batting cage, he's supposed to spray it down with this disinfectant. That's quite a difference, of course, from last year. We never did that. The bat boy puts two big ball bags of baseballs for batting practice out there. I prepare a smaller, what we call pitcher's bag for the bullpen catchers to take to the bullpen so that they can use what we call rub baseballs. Baseballs have to be rubbed. Brand new baseballs are rubbed with Delaware River mud. And we prepare for the game 108 for the umpires, and then 36 for the bullpen, and then we have backup of about 72 to 84 baseballs in case the players start fouling a lot of balls off or for whatever reason. And it's sort of crazy because the first night we used 167 balls, and then yesterday we used 102. So we must have fouled a lot of baseballs off that first night. Of course, there were a lot of runs scored. It was 20 runs were scored between the two teams. And when the game starts, the umpire room guy, who happens to be my son, Brian, he runs the balls down to the umpire room. Mark Cave, Brian, and myself, we attend to the umpire's needs. They are also on the Red Card app, so they can order pre-game food and post-game food, and that's all. It's all part of today's age with the virus. Each player that orders something, each umpire that orders something, it comes in a plastic container, just like if you went to, say, Maggiano's and you ordered something to go, they would give you your food in a plastic container.
Wow, very jealous about that one.
I'm emphasizing the food, but getting back on track. Game time. Pardon me?
I said, are you hungry?
No, not at all. I can't eat anything after smelling the food. It's really good food, but when you're around it, you can't eat it. It's just there.
Dude. You've been with the Tigers for over 40 years now, and I know this question is going to be hard, but do you have one particular memory over your career that stands out as your favorite?
Well, when we won the World Series in '84, that was right about the time they started going to the White House, being invited to go to the White House. And we didn't get invited because it was like prior to when that started happening. In '86, Darrell Evans came to me and he said, because teams were going to the White House to shake hands with the president, he said, anyway, you think we can get an invite to the White House. And I said I'd try to check. Ernie Harwell, who we all love and miss, suggested I call a gentleman by the name of Dale Petrosky, a native Detroiter Tiger fan that was actually like the traveling secretary for Ronald Reagan in Washington at that time. He eventually was president of the Baseball Hall of Fame too. And I haven't seen Dale in a few years, but he helped connect us with the White House. And I was able to go to the White House and have lunch in the just outside the Oval Office. It was really neat. And
Wow.
That stands out above everything. Besides the championship in '84, just as on a personal note, that was really neat and a fun thing to do.
Which player has had the most peculiar asks? So maybe they just want like green M&Ms, or if they want something that you were like, that's strange.
The most persnickety guy was Todd Jones, because he would it wasn't what he asked for. He just loved throwing stuff in the stands. And he loved throwing candy bars in the stands and gum and seeds. And I was afraid some people would get hurt by the projectiles, but he just loved it. That was just his character. Besides that, no, I can't right off the top of my head think of something. Something might come to me before we finish though. But I just remember Todd Jones' antics in the bullpen.
That's a good one. Okay, who has the messiest locker and who has the cleanest?
I would say the cleanest. There's a couple guys over my entire career. Two guys. Alan Trammell didn't even want you touching anything in his locker. He wanted his shoes in a certain spot, and he didn't want. That was his personality. He didn't want anybody doing something for him that he could do. And I'm sure I could name a couple more sloppy guys if I thought hard enough. I won't mention Jamer Candelario. No, he's got stuff everywhere. Oh, got another one. Nico. Nico's got stuff everywhere too. And he gets stuff every day.
Clean up after yourselves.
So, yeah, well, again, in this virus age, the clubhouse guys are supposed to have gloves on. And we ask the guys to please be as neat and organized as possible because we're not supposed to touch everything. And so I spend sometimes the first half hour I'm here just going around and taking extra stuff out of the guys' lockers and putting it back in our storage room.
Good to know. This is funny to see the other side of the guys that fans don't see, but you do. All right. And I know this season we've been talking about, it's been a little different with the pandemic. How difficult and what was it like moving everything from Lakeland to Detroit and starting a camp?
Well, first of all, my wife Linda and I stayed in Lakeland when the whole thing blew up. Everybody went home, and I think I was actually told they wanted everybody going home, and I just felt safer down there. And and all my work stuff was down there because we left everything because we were supposed to go back to Lakeland. So I literally went in every day, and over the years I've accumulated a lot of stuff. I got it reorganized. I'm very happy about that. And in fact, I got the phone rang. It was Alan Trammell, and he wanted to know if I knew what was going on. And I said, well, it sounds like we're coming to Lakeland. And the rumors are it might be as early as Friday or Saturday. They're going to ask people to show up. And he was happy to hear that we might get started. And literally within an hour, I got a note that I need to get a hold of Al Avila and John Westhoff, David Chad, and a couple other people. There might be a phone call about what we're doing. And when I got on that phone call, Al said, we're going to start in Detroit. Now we're talking Tuesday, whatever it was. It went from we're starting in Lakeland because everything was set ready to go in Lakeland. All the jerseys, all the players' equipment were in all their lockers, every one of them. We hadn't changed anything. And I said, when do you want us back? And he goes, well, first workout on July 3rd. And I start counting. I'm going, oh my God, that's like 8 days away. And still had to get a truck down there. It turned out we got 3 moving trucks. I had nobody to help load the trucks. And I Mark Kay's my assistant, and I got him, Craig Shepard, to come down with Dan Ross, who works on the visiting side. Got them to fly down on Wednesday, late in the afternoon, to start packing everything for the truck that was going to be there Thursday. And then there was another truck going to be there Friday. And Fortunately for me, there are people in Lakeland were outstanding. I called Ron Myers, longtime friend who runs the Lakeland Ball Club in the area, the whole Tiger Town complex. And I said, any of your people available? Because they weren't even coming into work. I hadn't seen anybody. They were doing their work at home. And he said, well, I'll call a few people, but they're really, a lot of them are nervous about the virus. So he says, if they can, I'm sure they will, but don't, you can't count on it. Every one of them showed up 8 o'clock the next morning. Because if anybody's moved out of a house, you know how tough that is. But we had to move this whole building. And so we got the first truck packed Thursday, the second truck packed Friday. The four of us flew home, Mark, Dan, Craig, and I. We had to take another saliva test on Sunday. The minute you take the saliva test, you have to sit out for 2 days. You can't go into work. You have to stay away. So we couldn't even go in and unpack the trucks. We got in Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., with Friday being the workout at 7:30 in the morning. And we went, how are we going to get this done? We had to do the spacing. We had to space the lockers out. I had to start on the food. We'd never had this app before. I always just supplied the food. I had caterers come in. Had a lot of different things to get done. But again, with the help of my clubhouse men that worked up here, my staff that was in Lakeland all showed up, came in and worked. People in the front office in Detroit helped out. Got everything unpacked, everything ready to go by 11 o'clock Thursday night. It was incredible. That's a long story, but that's how it unfolded.
That's how it happened. And it just goes to show how great of a guy you are, that many people would drop anything to come help you. Jim, your work behind the scenes does not go unnoticed. It's been so great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me and Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for giving me a little break.
Love it. Go out there. You got a gang tonight. I'm really excited to see you sometime soon, hopefully at the ballpark.
Thank you, Carly and Jim. That was a very interesting perspective on what goes on behind the scenes of a baseball game. Now, you guys, Carly's going to stay with us because it's time for Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Motor City Casino Hotel. And today's Bet You Didn't Know, Carly also knows what we're doing. She's got all the answers. So, Carly, I'm going to let you take this one away.
We're going to do some breakdowns of the Tigers and their matchups against the Royals. We got a whole plethora of baseball to talk about. Okay, you guys. First, we're going to start with Art. So, Art, we've been talking a lot about pitchers like Matt Boyd, Michael Fulmer, Buck Farmer, and more. I know we have a few other ones to talk about, but today I want to highlight Joe Jimenez. What have you been seeing from him?
Well, first of all, Carly, I want to say plethora, great word, one of my all-time favorites, and you used it in a sentence, so way to go. Pat yourself on the back for like the 5th time in the show today. Terrific job. You're really good at that, and I think you enjoy it. Joe Jimenez has been one of these guys that I have heard about for a number of years. When the Tigers draft somebody, they take him down into the minors and you start hearing about him. And my good old friend, real good friend of mine who's covered the Tigers for a long time, Pat Caputo, was talking to me about Joe Jimenez years ago. And, I'm going to do my Caputo impression. Look, I've been covering the Tigers since 1901, okay? Well, Pat would always talk about Joe Jimenez, and so he's always kind of been on my radar. And the thing that I really, really like about Jimenez is now he leads the major leagues with 4 saves. Pat told me way back then that this guy is going to be the Tiger closer. They're grooming him for the closer, and that's exactly what he is. He's a 2018 All-Star, but since he was named closer last year in August, he has converted 13 of 14 save opportunities. And really, and look at that, strikeout to walk ratio is 5.71. That is amazing. And the thing is he might not be getting the strikeouts that he likes at this point, but he's not walking anybody. He has great control. He mixes his speeds up. His fastball's averaging 94 miles an hour. His slider is averaging 83 miles an hour. He keeps hitters off balance, even if they know the pitch that's coming. If he hits his spots, and that's it. We hear from all these pitchers all the time, it's location, and Joe Jimenez has it down. As a matter of fact, based on what Matt Shepard and Jack Morris were saying about Jimenez and how much he wants the ball. He wants to be the closer. He wants to go into that ninth. I am now have a new nickname that I'm debuting right now. I'm going to call Joe Jimenez. Instead of Joe Jimenez, I'm calling him CC Jimenez for control and confidence, because that's what he has. He has great control on the mound, and he has great confidence, and he wants to be there. For so long, and the Tigers have had some great closers over the years. I know that. But that has always been kind of the bane of Tiger fans' existence, has been the bullpen. Okay. It's much like, for years, the Red Wings needed a big, strong, defenseman on the blue line, some guy that could pulverize people. Well, it's always, God, if only the Tigers had a bullpen. If only the Tigers had a bullpen. Well, I'm not going to, the Red Wings had Nick Lindstrom back then, who might not have been the most physical guy, but one of the greatest of all time. Who knows? Maybe CC Jimenez is going to now be that guy. I like players that want to be put in those situations. And he wants to be the closer. He's proving he wants to be the closer. So that when he goes out there, he's going to give you everything that he has. Great control pitcher. That's what I like about him. I just like guys that want to be in that moment. And Joe Jimenez, or CC as he's affectionately known, is one of those guys. So, that, and that's huge. That's absolutely huge. The back of the Tigers bullpen with George Buck Farmer and Joe CC Jimenez, I mean, if you look at it, that's pretty good. I mean, that solidifies something. That cures a lot of your ills, and I'm power obsessed today, plus the power that this team has. Well, the Tigers, and, it's early. It's 6 games in. I understand that. I know they're 4-2. They were 7-3 last year, but this is a 60-game schedule. They're a much better team than they were last year. They play better defense. They can hit for power. Their bullpen's coming together. Their starting pitching, I think, is going to be fine. So there's a lot of things to like, especially with young Mr. CC Jimenez in that closer role. I love it. I love the guy.
Love it. We need a confident guy to close it out, and I think CC is definitely in the running. Okay. Daniela, I don't want to undermine the success that the Tigers had in the past couple of games at home, but do you think home field advantage played towards that at all in this series against the Royals?
Well, I think it definitely did, Carly. And the reason is the Tigers have had a lot of success against the Royals at home. There is really no place like home for the Tigers. They had, like I said, a lot of success against the Royals, one playing right here at Comerica Park, going 7-3 against them last season and taking 2 of 3 so far this year. Additionally, starting pitcher for tonight, Ivan Nova, has also pitched better at home, with his career ERA dropping nearly a full run and the opponent's batting average dropping almost 30 points. So Comerica Park is spacious, but expect Ivan Nova to be at his best when the ball's on the ground. Last season, he threw his sinker and curveball over 50% of the time. So look out for the infield to be busy tonight, and as Nova goes for his first win as a Tiger. So hopefully he can do that right here at Comerica Park. Like I said, he's had a lot of success in his home game, so we're looking for him to kind of continue that in a Tigers uniform. It should be a really fun matchup tonight. I'm expecting big things out of the Tigers tonight against Kansas City as they close out this series. Carly, we've talked a lot about the Tigers bullpen. Art seems pretty impressed with it. What have you seen so far in this series with Kansas City?
I agree with Art. I think the Tigers bullpen has been outstanding, especially the past couple games that we've had, with 7 different pitchers throwing 10 innings without allowing a run against the Royals. I mean, that's pretty impressive when you look at those stats. As Art mentioned, Joe Jimenez, or CC as he likes to call him, has locked down the 9th for the Tigers, but especially in this unique season with the starters still stretching out a bit, being able to fill in the 5th through the 8th innings, that's key with Gregory Soto, Jose Cisnero, and Buck Farmer starting to put together a formidable bullpen for the Tigers. Another big word for you, Art, formidable. So I'm impressed.
Don't press your luck there, Carly. Don't press your luck. That's one big word to show is let's work with that. All right, let's take some baby steps.
If we were playing Words with Friends or Scrabble, I'd be winning.
Yeah, you would. Okay, I'll give you that.
But yes, I agree with Art. I've been thoroughly impressed and looking forward to seeing what they're going to do in the series again against the Reds.
That's right, you guys. The Tigers are taking on the Kansas City Royals to wrap up the series tonight. Game time is at 7:10, so make sure you are tuning into that. And that wraps up our Bet You Didn't Know for today, presented by our friends at Motor City Casino Hotel. Carly, don't go anywhere yet because I know that you have been monitoring both the Red Wings and the Tigers' social media channels. What do you have for us today?
That is right. And as we continue to talk about the Tigers, and I know we've mentioned this guy a few times, let's check out these pictures of Miguel Cabrera having fun out on the field. I mean, I guess when you're 4-2, you got a smile on your face, but this is a guy who has a personality as big as his batting power. So it's fun to see him out there having fun with the team. I know they all have a really good bond. And then now on to the Wings. A special happy birthday to Michigan native and a lot of people's favorite Red Wings player, Dylan Larkin. Happy birthday, Dylan. And we have something special going on today. In honor of Dylan's birthday, our dedicated fans have a chance to win an authentic jersey autographed by Dylan Larkin. How exciting, right? So all you have to do to be entered to win, you just head on over to DetroitRedWings.com and submit the form and cross your fingers and hope for good luck. So once again, happy birthday, Dylan, from the Word on Woodward. But fans, just remember to send in your questions. We'll be answering them later on in the show. So send the question in on any social media platform. I'll catch it, and hopefully we'll get to it and answer it later on in the show.
Thank you, Carly. As she said, you guys make sure you're dropping your comments and questions in the comments in whatever platform you are watching us on. You guys, we still have Jeff Seidel coming up to talk more Tigers, and Art will sit down with FSD reporter Johnny Kane. Right now, I promise you guys, we didn't forget that the NHL playoffs are starting this weekend. So let's get into Art and I's interview with Dana Wakiji. It's time for Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light, and today's guest is a returning Word on Woodward guest, senior content producer Dana Wakiji. Dana, thank you as always for joining us. We're excited. We've got some hockey happening.
Yay, we can watch hockey. I'm so excited. In fact, I've got some on right now. The exhibition game between Tampa Bay and Florida is on right now, so
that's awesome. Let's talk about a couple of those exhibition games. We had 4 exhibition games happen yesterday, and we've talked a lot about the style of hockey that we're going to see in this upcoming playoff. Now that we've seen a few exhibition games, Dana, how are teams looking, and what do you think that style of play will be?
Well, I think so far it looks pretty good. I didn't think that it was going to be quite as good, actually, as it has been. But, you know, some of these teams, like we've talked about Edmonton in the past, they're a younger team. They've got those young legs. So maybe they have a, quote, leg up on some of the competition when it comes to these types of things. But I also think a lot of these teams that were expecting to come back and play really took their training seriously and kind of stayed in shape as best they could, even if they didn't have access to ice. You know, I'm watching like Braden Point here. He already has 2 goals in this exhibition game of the first period. So he obviously hasn't missed a beat. And so I think a lot of it's going to depend on how many of these players can stay healthy and, you know, can everybody, you know, avoid getting COVID while they're in the bubble.
Dana, I couldn't agree with you more on that. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And you know what's interesting about it is that, you know, Steve kind of alluded it to in his one of the press conferences that he had recently. I don't know, what was that, like 7 years ago now? But that when he said, we'll see who wants to be a player. We'll see what these guys do because they're all on their own. And he was specifically talking about the Red Wings. But I think what the league did was, even if a lot of these guys were sitting around eating bonbons on the couch, they gave them enough lead time where they could get off their fat butts and actually start working out. And, you know, they had time before training camp. They gave them enough time to work out, I guess is what I'm saying, because I agree with you. I think the quality of hockey, and we'll see. I mean, you know, the adrenaline's going. They're back out on the ice. They're playing. You know, I don't know how much you can read into a first game, but we'll see exactly where it is. But I'm pretty impressed right now with the level of play.
I am too. And so if it keeps getting better from here, then it's going to be something great to watch throughout the summer. So let's hope so. And let's hope everybody stays healthy. The thing I'm worried about is, like, okay, you know, they've been told, you know, you're not allowed to really high five or all these other things, but these guys have been playing this way all their lives. How do you not react when somebody scores a goal? How do you not just jump in his arms?
That is going to be a big
Yeah.
change, Dana. Like the celebrations after a goal, especially if it's, let's just say it's an overtime game winner or something like that. How are you not jumping all over your players, tackling them, high-fiving the goalie? It'll definitely be interesting. That's an interesting point to bring up. Something else Art said that I found interesting is that you can't really read into the very first game. And something that I thought of was preseason games in a normal year. We don't really season games very much, but now we've got these exhibition games leading up to a 2014 playoff. Do these exhibition games mean more than your normal exhibition games?
I think they do, just in terms of getting that game speed, because you can practice and you can scrimmage against your own teammates all you want, but it's until you see somebody in a different uniform on the other side that really gets you going and that you really get those competitive juices flowing. Sure, in practice you want to beat your own teammate, your goalie, and score on them, but it's not quite the same as scoring on, like yesterday, Philly and Pittsburgh. I mean, of course they want to score on each other. They hate each other. That's the way it's supposed to be. So I think that it helps get game shape and the competitive juices truly flowing.
Dana, before we get into specifically the type of hockey we're going to see since the Red Wings are in Phase 5, I know I get asked all the time, and I'm sure that you get asked this all the time. At this point, what are the Red Wings doing? There isn't a whole lot emanating from Little Caesars Arena or wherever all the administrators are at this point. I mean, I don't think until we get this playoff underway and it looks like it's going to work, that the Red Wings really don't have much to do right at this point. Hopefully, guys are staying in shape.
Well, I think some of the younger guys, the ones, I'm thinking specifically guys like Taro Hirose, who really need to add strength. Those are the guys who this time is going to be perfect for, because they're in the gym every day. He's probably in there 4 or 5 hours a day just because he needs to gain that strength. Other guys like the BT Express, Anthony Mantha, he's doing his thing. He's got a routine. He can stick to it, but they just can't get too overwhelmed at this point. So, because, they don't want to tax themselves and get injured before whatever happens. So, right now they're not doing a lot. And in terms of the front office, some of the players in Europe are starting to get their seasons going. So they might be tuning in to watch them, either via video, or I don't think they can quite go over there yet. But when they do, when they are able to travel, they'll probably get on the plane and go see them play.
Dana, in a normal season, July and August, the teams start to get together and do some summer workouts. Obviously, that's not happening this summer. The playoffs aren't even starting until August. But do you think the league will start to allow some of the teams that didn't make the playoff to work out together and do some official practices? Or what do you see in the future in that sense?
I remember we talked to Luke Glendening about that when they sort of had their season-ending availability, because he's one of the player reps, and he was hoping that they would do something like that. And I know they've talked about it in the NBA, having their own separate non-playoff bubble, but I doubt they'll do that here. But maybe if they could at least have them have some sort of mini camps with their coaches, they can communicate with their coaches via Zoom calls and whatnot, but it'd be better to be able to get on the ice and work through some of the skills that they normally do every August, September before training camp starts.
Still a lot of unknown with the NHL, but we do know that we have seen some exhibition games, which we already touched on a little bit. I wanted to ask you both, actually, specifically about Edmonton. We have had the discussion that obviously Edmonton has the young legs. Connor McDavid had 2 goals yesterday in their exhibition game against Calgary. But one thing that, Art, you always mention is that you think goaltending is going to be huge in this upcoming playoff. And during that exhibition game between Edmonton and Calgary, Edmonton had some solid goaltending between Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith. They were both in there with some ice time, only allowing 1 goal between the two of them. And I believe it was Mike Smith that ultimately gave up that 1 goal. But now you're looking at Edmonton from their threats up top, and then you've got their threats in net too. And Connor McDavid himself said, this is going to be an advantage for us to have 2 goalies that we can trust. Dana, start with you. Do you think this adds something for Edmonton, or is this something you expected?
No, that definitely adds something for Edmonton. I think that was something they'd been lacking in previous years. But if you can have not just 1, but 2 goalies going, that's the perfect thing to have in case someone goes down, gets hurt, gets sick, whatever it is. If you have that kind of depth, then it'll definitely help your chances going forward in the playoffs.
Well, I look at it this way. I mean, for a guy like Mike Smith, who's almost like the forgotten goalie, at Tampa, and then Ben Bishop comes along and, he moves on and second string and goes up, to Calgary, and now he's in Edmonton. I mean, this is a sprint. Any way you look at it, even though they're going to be playing best of 7 series here eventually, if he can get hot, I mean, this could be it for him. I mean, this could be the best opportunity he's going to have in his career to win a Stanley Cup right now and be the guy. So I think there's a lot of motivation. We talk about the young players here, and rightly we should. They're in shape. They have the legs. They're supremely talented. It's certainly a young man's league. But I really think some of these veteran guys who look at this opportunity are thinking to themselves, I'm really, really close. And especially if you're one of these teams that weren't in the top 16, meaning you're not a playoff team and suddenly you are, I think there's a lot of incentive. I think there's a lot of incentive for a lot of teams. That's why, seriously, I think this is wide open. We talk about goaltending. We talk about, who plays the best defense, who has the young legs. I think all of that is going to be a factor. But I think when it's all said and done, I think it's going to come back down to individual motivation and desire. Who really, really wants it? And that's something that, as talented as the three of us are, I think that's something we just can't judge. I mean, that's why I think that that's why it's going to be a lot of fun. Truthfully, heck, I'm watching Philadelphia and I'm thinking, you know what? Don't sleep on the Flyers. And then I'm thinking to myself, I could name off all 16 of these teams and say, don't sleep on them. You know what I mean? I mean, each team has something going for it that if they're able to put that specific thing together, they could make a run and win the Stanley Cup. I mean, and that's exciting from a fan's perspective. But it also is a great unknown. I think we really are in, a great unknown. And I guess that's how 2020 is probably going to be labeled as a year, the great unknown, because we just don't know. But I do know if they can pull it off, and I hope we are in for a really good ride. So with that said, Dana, who ends up winning this thing? Who shouldn't we sleep on for sure?
You should definitely not sleep on the Colorado Avalanche. They've got Nathan MacKinnon, one of the Hart Trophy candidates. I mean, he's an unbelievable player he's been in the league since he was just a kid, and now he's still only 24, 25 years old. And he's an incredible guy and player. And so he's got a lot of talent around him. So unfortunately for Detroit fans, they don't want to hear Colorado's great, but they actually are. And then, you never know. With a season like this, maybe this is Tampa Bay's time to finally take all that talent, put it all together. They got Vasilevsky in net. He's unbelievable. And maybe this is their time. I don't know. But like you said, you have to watch and see because it is anybody's game.
Well, Dana, we'll find out soon enough. The NHL is going to drop the puck on the 2020 playoffs this Saturday. We're all really excited. And Dana, we will definitely be having you back soon to talk about what we see out there and what the competition is like. As always, thank you for joining us. And a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Thanks again to Dana for joining us. We'll definitely have her back on once these playoffs get underway. Art, I know you don't like it, but we have had a lot of guests picking the Avalanche to win it all. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's a testament to Nathan MacKinnon's a great player. I think that number one, that's part of it. They're a good young team. Cale Makar, patrolling that blue line, and he's obviously at elite level. I think they're a good young club. I think that what we found out is that teams that are young, and that's why people like Edmonton, obviously with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That they're starting to go that way. But again, going back, I know we just had Dana on, and I had a great filibuster in the middle of that interview there. I was even telling myself to be quiet, but and that doesn't happen very often. But just get to the point. But like I'm trying to right now, I really think that we're sleeping on veteran teams. And so that's why I'm looking at a team like the Boston Bruins that, and with that line of, and although Pasternak, I know he's playing now, and Marchand and Bergeron and, Tuukka Rask, who's a Vezina finalist, I'm almost starting to lean because they've been there, they're experienced, they're playing playoff games right away after having almost 3 or 4 months off. So I'm almost starting to change my philosophy and looking at it and saying, maybe it is Tampa's year. Maybe it is going to be Boston. I still like the Vegas Golden Knights because of Marc-Andre Fleury, who's a veteran. So I can see why Colorado is the team. And you're right. I know, Daniela, you like Colorado a lot, and they're a supremely talented team, and they're loaded. And McKinnon is a cut above. But with all that said, I'm beginning to think 3 out of 5, you got to hit the ice skating or running, so to speak. I think if you're a veteran team with experience and you know what it takes to win, and you have the desire, and it's definitely going to be a sprint no matter any way you look at it, that might be a distinct advantage. And so I'm starting to refocus and thinking maybe a veteran team has the advantage going into these playoffs.
I like it, Art, switching it up on us. You like the fresh young legs at the beginning. A few exhibition games in, you're already going with the veterans. I like it, though. I like it. We'll see what happens starting Saturday. The NHL playoffs, like I said, will drop the puck this Saturday. We're all really excited for it. And, of course, we'll have all the news for you right here on the Word on Woodward. Right now, you guys, we're going to get back to baseball. It's time for Brush Street Beat, presented by our friends at McLaren. And, you guys, we have a first-time Word on Woodward guest today. Sports columnist for the Detroit Free Press, Jeff Seidel, is joining us. Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, we are really excited to have you. We're going to talk some Tigers baseball. 6 games into the season, Jeff, and the Tigers have really raised some optimism here in Detroit. What have you thought of this team so far?
Well, first of all, what's amazing is 6 games in, we're already 10% done of this season, which is kind of amazing.
Right.
I mean, they're 4-2. They're playing fantastic. They're getting timely hitting. The bullpen in the wins has been just incredible, and you're getting different people contributing seemingly every day.
Jeff, when you look at this Tiger team and you start to think about it, certainly defensively they're a much better team. They're not the same team that lost 114 games. I think if you lose 114 games the next season, you better not be the same team. And so the Tigers have done that. But the thing that has been most impressive to me, and we can get into the pitching and all that, has been the power. I mean, Scope and Crone, at least early on, look like they're very, very good acquisitions in the free agent market.
Well, they're legit major league hitters, and both have contributed in a huge way. And then you can throw Jacoby Jones in the mix, who has had this resurgence. I mean, yesterday, 2 doubles and a home run. But it's not just that. It's also the vibe this group of free agent acquisitions has brought to this team. I mean, a lot of people talk about Cameron Maybin in right field and what he's brought to the clubhouse, the camaraderie. So, and yeah, it's easy to have camaraderie when you're winning, but it's been some fantastic acquisitions, including Rehmann, who's playing catcher. And now you have these young pitchers with a veteran catcher who can go out and say, come on, man, get your head together, that kind of thing. So it's all 4 of those guys have really did a big contribution to this success.
Jeff, let's talk a little bit about pitching. You've seen most of the starters now, aside from Dario Agrazal and Daniel Norris. Who has impressed you so far the most?
Well, Matthew Boyd has struggled in a big way. The starting pitching is actually the biggest problem right now. I mean, and you have all these young guys in the minors. Spencer Turnbull, who some people think could have the best stuff on the staff. He went 5 innings, I believe, last time he pitched. He has been the best, but that's actually the crazy thing about this is it hasn't been the starting pitching. It's been the relievers. It's been the timely hitting. It's been the improved defense. But then you also have all these young kids in the minors who could come up at some stage and help. And Daniel Norris, who certainly can come up and help as soon as he's healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting. You bring up the young arms. We always hear about Casey Mize and Matt Manning and Tarek Struble and obviously Alex Faedo. I was comparing him to the Braves of the late '80s as far as maybe starting pitching
Certainly.
somewhere down the line. And and I guess my question to you, Jeff, covering sports all these years, I think the biggest question, and fans ask me a lot, and I'm sure you get it, is when is it time to bring up your young talent? When do you bring them up? And I know there's rules and regulations about service time or time served and all that kind of stuff. But what is your philosophy? I mean, do you would you, if you were, let me put it to you this way, Jeff. If Jeff Seidel is manager or general manager of a club, and you've got a young talent, and the rules are all cool and all that kind of stuff, that side of it, are you a guy that says baptism under fire? Or are you more like a Ken Holland who says, well, I'd like to have them overripe, let them stay in the minors a little bit longer?
I actually wrote today that I think they should come up. And especially, this is a different team. I mean, you're talking, they have this great, warm, welcoming vibe in this clubhouse. They're winning. They have veterans at catcher, first, second, right. Other people are coming in. Now you actually have some holes in the starting rotation. Bring these guys up as soon as you can, service time. I don't want to wreck this year, but as soon as you can, bring them up, because this is the perfect environment for these guys to get exposed or to get their feet wet. And there's no fans in the stands, so you don't have this added pressure. There's no expectation on this team that they're going to win. So you don't have Casey Mize feeling like he has to be the ace of the staff. Matt Boyd is still there, even though he has struggled. I think it's a perfect time to bring these guys up, as long as you don't screw up service time. Skubal, I think he's really, really good. I've seen him a bunch. I mean, Mize, Skubal, Faedo is this competitive guy. Manning is super competitive. They have the makings of something special, but what I love about this group that's on the Tigers right now, just having a veteran catcher can help those guys in such a big way. And you might not have that. All those free agent acquisitions are on one-year deal. So if they're gone after this year, the team next year might be way worse because you don't have these veterans. It seems like a perfect opportunity.
Back to hitting, Jeff, for a minute here. You mentioned some of the guys that are hitting really well right now, like CJ Cron, you've got Austin Romine, Jonathan Scope, and of course, Jacoby Jones. But Miguel Cabrera, I don't want to say he's struggling, but he hasn't yet seemed to find his groove. My question for you is, do you think he will find his groove? How long does something like that take? And hey, the Tigers are going to be extremely dangerous if he can find that groove.
Oh, absolutely. I forget. I mean, I was at the game last night. I think he's 2 for 20. Yes, he's struggling. I saw him in spring training, the first spring training, and he looked, he had lost the weight. He was turning on balls. I saw him in the summer camp, same thing. I am surprised he has struggled like this, but it's not just Miguel. Christian Stewart, Candelario. Christian hit a home run, I think it was 2 days ago. That's the weird thing about this team. It's striking out at a ridiculous level. They're getting timely hitting, timely home runs. That's what's kept them alive. If any of those other guys start to heat up a little bit, man, they could do some damage. And in this year where you have an expanded playoffs, a team that's 500 might make it. So it's a really intriguing year, but they have to hit.
Jeff, I know that the environment's different. There's no fans in there. There's piped in sound. It's weird watching a ball game with nobody there. Yet, one thing that we haven't touched upon, I was just quickly glancing up at my Tiger schedule here, and they play through the end of August 22 home games and 15 on the road. I think that is a distinct advantage for the Tigers, who are a better club at Comerica Park. And if you look at it from that aspect and the way that they've been able to hit, if Cabrera can get it together, and we know Miggy is, he's a Hall of Fame player, that eventually will come. You bring up Dan Norris, or Daniel Norris, I guess I should say. Jimenez has solidified that closer role. Maybe you bring up Casey Arthur Mize, and he comes in and does his thing. I guess what I'm leading to, Jeff, in this very long question is this. My battle cry this year for the Tigers is why not the Tigers? But the way the schedule's falling for them, the way that, the pitching's coming together and they're hitting for power and they play great defense, let me ask you, Jeff Seidel, why not the Tigers?
I wrote it before the season. I thought the same thing. And it's because of the additions. You've really strengthened a bunch of positions. And then you throw in some of the young kids and what that could mean over the last month. I absolutely agree with you. Now, the biggest key to me, and it's one thing you didn't mention, it's the coronavirus. I mean, look what happened to Miami. All it takes is one case to go through there, knock out 3 guys, and everything changes. But along the same lines, that can happen to other teams. Now, what I like about that, you have a Matthew Boyd who takes this incredibly seriously. He has bad asthma. You have a manager who I believe battled cancer. I believe they're really taking it seriously, and I think that could play a role in the season going forward.
Well, to get a quick follow-up on that, Jeff, I believe the Philadelphia Phillies just recently, and I'm following Twitter here during the show as well, have suspended some baseball operations because one of their coaches and an employee has tested positive for COVID-19. So, yeah, unfortunately, the elephant in the room, if you will, is COVID-19.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that's going to have the final say. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that, which is too bad, especially because the way the Tigers have started. I think we're all eager for baseball.
Yeah, it would be horrible to see this shut down all of a sudden, especially because there is so much excitement watching this team right now. The bullpen, and granted it's really early, but there have been so many amazing signs with that bullpen, everything from Buck Farmer to Joe Jimenez to Soto, who's coming out of the bullpen throwing gas. I mean, 100 or 99 miles an hour. It's a fascinating start.
Jeff, Ivan Nova is on the mound tonight right here at Comerica Park to wrap things up with this Kansas City series. What are your predictions for tonight? What can we expect out of the Tigers?
One thing I will not predict is single game, because in baseball you never know what's going to happen. I would have predicted that Matt Boyd would have come out and just heated it up last night. So I have no idea on a day-to-day basis. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, let me reword it this way then. The series will wrap up tonight. What do you think we can expect to see against Cincinnati in the next series?
I was in Cincinnati, and the thing about Cincinnati, watching those games, is how small that ballpark is. And I can't wait to see. And there were home runs that they hit that I don't think would have been home runs in Comerica Park. It's going to be really intriguing. And again, we're a tenth of the way through this season. If they just keep stringing together series wins, oh my goodness, this could really be a fun summer.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It has been great to have you. We will definitely be having you back as the season rolls on, and we're hoping for some more wins. Like you said, stringing these series wins together will be great. Again, thanks for joining us. And a big thank you to McLaren Healthcare for presenting Brush Street Beat this week and every week right here on the Word on Woodward. Art, great to catch up with Jeff. I like everything that he had to say. We all just keep getting really excited for this Tigers season. I don't know. I don't know how much more excited we can be. What about you, Art?
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I can remember going to the 2002 traveling with the Wings for the Stanley Cup, and they ended up playing the St. Louis Blues in the second round. And what I found out really what was interesting about that is that everyone in St. Louis was coming up to me and saying, oh, well, the Red Wings got it. The Blues aren't going to pose a problem. You guys are going to go through this. But in baseball, if it were the Cardinals, then they would give the Tigers everything. And my point and why I'm telling this story is that in St. Louis, they kept telling me what a great baseball city they were, how they're really into it, and they're the best fans and all that. And I said, well, Detroit's a professional city. I mean, we have all 4 majors, plus if you throw in, the Big Ten Conference with Michigan and Michigan State, which are almost pro teams in my book. I mean, And so I had trouble trying to convince the St. Louis fan base, who think they're great Cardinal fans and are God's gift to baseball. Detroit is a baseball city. First and foremost, Detroit is a baseball city. I love hockey. It's my favorite sport, and college football is a very close second. Sometimes they intermingle depending on who's better, Michigan or the Red Wings. But with that said, but baseball is Detroit's game. Detroit is one of the best baseball cities in America. You look at the iconic players. The greatest player of all time, Ty Cobb, was a Detroit Tiger. You put it that way. The last pitcher to win 30 games in the major leagues, which is probably never going to happen again, is Denny McLain, 31-6. So I guess my point being is that all you need is to be just a little bit competitive, just a smidgen of being competitive, and they're going to fill, when they can, Comerica Park. Detroit loves the Tigers. Detroit's a baseball city, and I think we're proving that right now. I think that look on Twitter and all that. Everyone's engaged right now with the Tigers. The Tigers are the talk of the city, and rightly so, because some guys are coming up, and then they're looking at, oh my gosh, Jacoby Jones, living up to his potential. This Scope and this Crone guy, where wow, Al Avila, maybe he does know what he's doing. To the cynics out there. How can you not be excited? How can you not be happy? How can you not be optimistic? Now, certainly, and as Jeff pointed out, this is a 60-game schedule. As optimistic as we are, catch me a week from now, and I might be saying, geez, I didn't see that coming. Okay, but that's part of sports. That's what makes sports great. We just don't know. We just don't know how it's going to actually play out in the end, but you've got to be encouraged by this start. I think the Tigers are only going to get better. I think they're a better team than they were last year, significantly better. When you throw all that mix in, again, until they prove me otherwise, why not the Tigers? Why not the Tigers? And going back to Jeff about this mindset that he was talking about, we saw that with Matt Boyd. We're tired of getting our teeth kicked in. Last year we might have lost 114 games, but we were in every game. We were competitive. We didn't hang our heads. We went out there and performed. Well, now you put in a much better club on the field this year with that kind of mindset, with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. Whoa, why not the Tigers, Daniela? Why not the Tigers? You got CeCe Jimenez in there and in the bullpen, George Farmer setting it up in the 8th inning. The starting pitching, I think, is going to come around. Boyd's going to get it together. Maybe Mize comes up sometime this season. Daniel Norris, I think, is going to contribute. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to like about this Tiger team. But granted, the AL Central, there's some good teams in that division. So, I'm going to try to temper it. But two things I want you to remember. Why not the Tigers? And Detroit is definitely a baseball city, and I think we're seeing it right now just by the response that the Tigers have generated in this community in the first 6 games of the year.
Art, I love when you get amped up. That's my favorite thing. That was great. So if anybody wasn't excited before Art just ramped up for us there, you're definitely excited now. Make sure you guys are tuning in to the Tigers game tonight. They wrap up the series with Kansas City starting at 7:10 tomorrow. We've got Cincinnati back in town to start the series with them, the second series of the season. Right now, we're going to get to the headliner with Art, and he sat down with Johnny Kane.
Thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. Let's bring in Fox Sports. I call him a man of all seasons, really. Johnny Kane joins us. Johnny, thanks for joining us on the headliner. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you betcha, man. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, I want to go back to the beginnings of young Johnny Kane. You grew up in Ohio, right? I don't know how fans know much of your background. But you grew up in Ohio. Were you a Detroit fan growing up in Ohio, or were you more, geared towards Cleveland or Cincinnati or whomever?
Yeah, no, good question. Usually when first people hear that I'm from Ohio, the first thing they want to know is if I'm a Buckeyes fan. So we usually get off on one foot or the other. I'll just say that I went to Ohio University, although I always thought I was going to go to Ohio State. That being said, I did grow up a Detroit sports fan. I grew up on, like, I had a Joe Dumars poster on my wall, Isaiah Thomas, listened to Harwell when I was out, cruising around in the small towns of Ohio. It's a very small town. It's actually a village of Delta. So it's like 2,500 people when I was there, and it's 100 miles from where I live now in Royal Oak back home. So Detroit was our biggest city beyond Toledo. So I did grow up a Detroit sports fan.
Were you a rebel in your house? I mean, did you become a Michigan fan with your brother and your dad being Buckeyes?
No, sorry. I mean, I can't go there. But
do you ever mention Michigan? Can you mention Michigan in your house?
Yeah. No, I will say this. My great uncle, I have a picture on my wall in the other room. He was an All-American at Michigan. And so Bob Chappius. And this was, eons ago. But anyhow, we always loved, we respect the school. I love being on campus in Ann Arbor. I just don't root for the football team. That's it.
Wait a second. Bob Chappius is your uncle?
Great uncle. Yep.
He's one of the greatest football players in Michigan history, and he's a war hero. I mean, this guy, he is like, next to Tom Harmon, he's one of the greatest Wolverines ever.
Thank you for saying that. Honestly, in fact, the photograph that I have is it's an action shot, black and white, but it has his years, and there was the time off during the war. So he had 2 stints at Michigan, obviously, with the war interrupting it. So I'm glad you said that. I actually told Coach Harbaugh about that when I first had a chance to meet him, and he was up to speed on the history as well.
Because, your uncle's teams were in my dad's wheelhouse, and so my dad loved Bob Chappius. I've heard about Bob Chappius my whole life. I mean, really. So that's interesting. Hey, man, that's cool. That's really, really cool.
Happy, man. I want to look into that, because if that's part of the lore, I'll have to get a hold of my mom a little bit later today and see if that rings true.
Yeah, there's some sort of story that he was captured, and when he was released, because they, obviously confiscate all their stuff, that he that the only thing he wanted was his, I don't know, because usually when you're a senior you get your M ring, but he wanted, it was some sort of artifact from the University of Michigan that's the only thing he wanted. So
I love that. I love it. I'm going to believe it. I'm going to believe it until I hear otherwise.
Well, you know what? I'll double check on that next time I see you or something. I'll let you know. Okay, let's get in. Let's get into you're a great reporter, but I call you like a man for all seasons, because not only do you ask the tough questions and you're there in the pre and post games and hosting shows, but you have this other side to you that is kind of a human interest feature type of reporter, which I think everybody that does the hardcore nuts and bolts likes to do. But you go to NASA. I mean, how does that happen? You screw around with the mascots all the time. God only knows how much food you've eaten over the years. I mean, can you talk about that genesis of your career? I mean, you're going to NASA. I mean, did you get sick? Did they put you in some sort of high-speed motion thing, or?
I was in some stuff. I was in some astronaut training stuff, but I think they scaled it back when they knew I was coming, once they took a look at me. I'll say this. I give a ton of credit to our producers, because it's not as if we're reinventing the wheel. There are great reporters in every market where when you have that type of access, sometimes, and especially being a team partner like we are, we're able to do some things that maybe not everybody would get the opportunity to do. So, like with the NASA stuff, that was, producer had reached out. He said, "Hey, what do you think about doing this?" And we go to Houston. I said, "Absolutely." And then, the food thing kind of took on a life of its own. We scaled that back a little bit. But my whole thing is, it's like, how you're not going to appeal to everybody, sort of like if you get into politics as well. If you do radio, if you do television, if you're a writer, you'll never be able to appeal to everybody, but you just have to be true to who you are. We try to showcase everything that's available to a fan that would want to come, right? So rather than just, like you said, we can all do the games, and there's plenty of them, not this season, but there are plenty of games where you can just come in and do the regular stories. But when you have an opportunity to do some of the ancillary stuff, to me, it's showcasing everybody what exists. And then if we can bring a smile to some people's face, that's good. There are some people that think some of the stuff we do is hokey, and that's fine too, but it's just, we try to have a little bit of fun with it and think outside the box, I guess.
Well, going to NASA, another thing that I like, because there was a point, I know you said you scaled back on it, where God only knows what you were going to put in your mouth. And I mean that in a good way. Every time I turned around, you were eating something. I mean, what was,
Yeah.
I mean, how much weight first did you put on, or did you have to constantly work out? And what was the most delicious thing out of all these morsels that you experienced that you've eaten over the years?
No, it's a great question because I actually did put on weight. Now, some people, everybody's different. So we all have our own body types. But I can tell you from the time I moved to Detroit, and I'm not saying it was all related to ballpark food, some of it. But when I moved to Detroit, I put on at least 30 pounds since then, right? So I would say, I mean, again, baseball is different from, say, I do a lot with the Pistons in the NBA as well. And I used to do a little bit with the Wings and a little bit with the Lions, but not saying they don't have unique foods at those places, but with baseball, it almost seems as every team or every stadium has, right, some type of signature outlandish, right? That's just kind of a baseball thing. That's a ballpark thing. So that was what we had tried to do. It was, define, what's unique here. Like when we were in Arlington, I guess, to play the Rangers, they had that boomstick, which is, a hot dog that was 3 feet long and it weighed, however many pounds, and it's filled with cheese and chili and peppers and all that. That thing, it really was. It was big around as a broomstick. I had to have 2 other fans that helped me try to attack it, But I remember one time we were in Baltimore and I think I tried, it wasn't that unique of a dish, but it was like something like a crab stuffed hot dog. But, it was 1,000 degrees and let's just say it didn't settle well. You know what I mean? It just didn't settle well.
You and I are on the same wavelength today, Johnny, because maybe it has a lot to do with Bob Champions. But the thing that I was thinking, you're eating pretty heavy food. Let's be honest here. I mean, this is definitely stuff that is delicious, probably pretty tough to go down at times. And you're in a ballpark and it's like 1,000 degrees. I mean, have you ever gotten sick?
I haven't gotten sick, but there are times when I knew not to finish the dish. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah, man. I do.
If you're eating in the 3rd inning and you've got 6 more innings plus post-game interviews to do, sometimes you just know when to tap out.
Well, you do a great job. And I do obviously want to get into sports a little bit, but the Tigers have started off really, really well. Your early impressions of this club.
Here's the thing. Somebody asked me the other day, somebody was walking past my place and I was out working in my garage and somebody said, are the Tigers really that bad? And this is after they lost their first game to Kansas City earlier this week. And I said, well, no, and then of course they won last night. I mean, they're above 500 here. I said, no, they're not that bad. I said, they had an off night. The thing about this whole deal is my impressions are favorable in that a lot of fans are clamoring to see the young players. Totally justified. That's what fans want. Now, there are some other young players they would like to see rushed up and through, and that's, again, that's just the way that it goes. But when it's a 60-game sprint, the objective always has been and always will be win 2 out of 3, right? Win the series. And they've done that once. They have a great opportunity to do it again this week against Kansas City. And then you turn your sights on St. Louis and Cincy again. Like you just have to be pretty good for pretty long. And the way that the playoff structure is now, you could be in it. And then it's all bets are off. So look, I don't know if anybody was targeting this as a World Series year, before the pandemic, and maybe not necessarily once the pandemic started, but we're seeing some of these young kids make their debut. There's no substitute for experience. If the pressure really is off, and what I mean by that is if you aren't expected to win, if ownership, let's say, says, hey, we understand we're young nucleus, we're building towards something. If your expectations aren't, hey, we have to win every night, and we're paying you gobs of money, go out there and win every night, you can go out and just play. And that's what I think we're seeing is guys that are going out and playing, competing hard. Gardy has a way with kids, you know what I mean, how to keep a clubhouse light. And look, you got to have good pitching like you do any season. And it seems to be that they have that. And once they stretch out Fulmer and you get Norris healthy and all that other stuff, and you got Boyd at the top. I mean, I'm not just saying this because I covered the team, but they really could be in it. They could be there. They could be there at the end. Now, can we make great Judgment after 5 games? Not necessarily, but that's all we have to evaluate. And through 5 games, I would say we've won more than we've lost. That's a good start.
60-game schedule, anything can happen. And I really think that if there's going to be a year where a team comes out of nowhere and surprises anybody, or if, quote unquote, the best team doesn't win the championship, why not?
Sure.
My battle cry is, why not the Tigers?
Why not? Exactly. Why not? Honestly, there are a lot of people that were talking about how good Cincinnati is. And again, it's one series and we'll see them, plenty more. But, Cincinnati has some pop in its lineup that we didn't necessarily see recently. And now the Tigers do. The experiment last year just didn't work due to injuries with, having Josh Harrison. We never really got to see what he was capable of doing.
Right.
But now you're talking with Jonathan Scope and CJ Crone. Hello. Like, I've watched those guys in the last couple of years, and people are seeing now what CJ can do. And obviously Jonathan hit his first homer yesterday. It's like, you have legit power hitters. Jacoby Jones, it's a young kid, man. Jacoby's now showing that, and we'll see, but it looks like he's looks much more disciplined at the plate. Jacoby's showing some power. Kristen Stewart looks much more reserved at the plate. I mean, you have some power, and to your point, that's the way baseball has been trending. And so we didn't have power numbers last year. Now, like you said, if the ball can leave the ballpark, okay, strikeout numbers are high. Some people may not like this brand of baseball where it's, it's high risk, high reward. But look, if the Tigers show that they can hit home runs and you can do that, up and down the lineup, or at least 1 through 6, 1 through 7, then yeah, we're not out of any game. No question.
Tigers have some pieces. They're not the same team that lost 114 games last year.
No question. And I think, and we talked about Matthew Boyd being at the top of it there. He gave up some home runs last year. We know that. But Boyd, he's going to be prepared when he comes to work every day. He's going to put the work in. Same with Dino and Buck. You mentioned, hey, Joe Jimenez has 3 saves already. You got to remember, this kid's 25 years old. So, everybody's talking about some of these young guys we want to see. Obviously, Casey being, at the top of the list. But we saw Kyle Funkhauser make his debut. Bo Burrows, these kids are going to be good. Brian Garcia or Ronnie Garcia looks good. You're right. You're right, man. Again, we can be optimistic. That's what we should be following this club. And maybe other teams around baseball are saying similar things, but they do seem to have enough, arms in the stable to be competitive early on. Again, can they stay healthy? I'm not talking COVID-related health. I'm just saying, can they stay healthy, right, with respect to arm issues and whatnot? If they can, then absolutely. I think this is a vastly different team than what we saw last year.
I'll tell you what, Johnny, if the Tigers do make some noise this year, hopefully you and I will get rings, because I think we've really pumped them up. So I think if they're listening right now, they got a couple of believers, my hands are empty right now. Come on, Tigers, come through.
Let's do it, man. I'm in.
It sounds great. Johnny, we could go on. We'll have to have you back. Any nephew of Bob Chappius is a friend of mine. So I certainly appreciate. No, I'm telling you, not only a great football player for the U of M, but also a great human being. So, obviously that's a great legacy to have. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very, very much. And look forward to seeing you, with everything you do at Fox. As I said, you're a man for all seasons. You're a true Renaissance man. Best of luck, Johnny. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Let's talk soon.
All right. There you have it, Daniela. It is the one and only Johnny Kane on the headliner, presented by Miller Lite. Miller Lite, the original light beer. It tastes great, only 96 calories, and it's available for delivery.
Johnny, I hope you're listening right now, but I have to tell you that I am one of the people that love the food bits. So I don't think you can do that this season. I'm assuming that's probably not going to happen, but as soon as you can, I want to go back to more of the food bits. Great interview, Art. It was great to hear from Johnny. Now, you guys, we're going to get into Let's Socialize, presented by our friends at AAA. And of course, we're going to bring back Carly for this one. She's been all over the social media accounts and she has all of your questions. But Carly, wait, what do you think? The food bits are great, right? Like that. I want to know what food is in every ballpark, honestly.
I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I've been on camera a few times eating sandwiches throughout Little Caesars Arena. They always have luncheon on something. So, I mean, on both sides of it, I love to watch it. I love his food bits, but also, in his shoes, you get free food. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
I benefited too, because when Carly didn't want to finish whatever she was eating, she would bring it to me and I would get to finish it.
Every time. That one sandwich, I can't remember which restaurant it was, but so good with the jam. Oh, it's good.
Yeah,
All
very
right.
good.
Anyway, now let's hop into Let's Socialize. We have a few really good questions, you guys. This is going to be one of our favorites. I can already tell. First one up, Art. In honor of Dylan's birthday, which is today, again, happy birthday once again, Dylan. What's your favorite Dylan Larkin moment? I know it's going to be a hard one, and I'm only giving you 2 minutes to answer this, Art, and that's long-winded.
Okay, real quickly though, I when we had Jeff on, I talked about what happened in Philadelphia, and I want to clear it up because I said that one of their coaches tested positive, and what exactly has happened, and I think this is important, and I definitely will get into the Dylan question. Corona's outbreak has left another team, the Philadelphia Phillies, idle for 5 days, aiming to play a doubleheader that could entail 7-inning games and scheduling a new opponent. One of the clubhouse staff tested positive along with another employee. So that's probably an ongoing story that we're going to have to follow. But I wanted to clear that up. All personnel, on-field personnel, 2 days in a row have been negative. So that's good. That's important, but that's obviously a developing story. With that said, my greatest... my favorite Dylan story. Well, first of all, he turns 24 years old today. Happy birthday to Dylan, or my favorite moment for Dylan. I think there's two. Actually, for someone who is that young, and I know he's been a Red Wing since he's been 19, seems like he's been here forever. That jersey they're giving away, by the way, is going to be a collector's item because it has an A on it, because as we know, when the season starts, next hockey season, he's going to have a C. I'm convinced that Steve's finally going to pull the trigger on that one. But I've been awarding him the C for like 3 years now. So, but I think there was a moment, I can't recall the team this year, where he got the puck and kind of Bobby Orr-esque skated through all 5 defenders, went in on the goalie and scored a goal. That is my favorite moment because it shows his high skill level. He does have a great shot. I wish he would shoot more. He has great moves. This was actually a skill move that he pulled off. But, he has that speed. Nothing is better than speed and being able to skate. He's one of the best skaters in the world. He still holds the record for fastest skater in the NHL in the skills competition. But, going through an entire team, all 3 forwards, both defensemen, and then scoring a goal. I love those kind of end-to-end rushes. I know after the game I asked him about it, and, he kind of laughed and smirked, and, he's a real modest young man. So he's not going to say, yeah, that was my plan all the time. I knew that I could beat them. But the way he answered it, he knew, I knew, and that he was going to beat him and score a goal, and that's exactly what he did. So that's it. End-to-end rushes, can't beat it. Dylan's going to have a lot more of those in the red and white for many seasons to come.
Love it. And as Art mentioned, you guys, do not forget to head on over to DetroitRedWings.com, submit that form to be entered to win a chance to win an authentic jersey autographed by Dylan Larkin. All right. So question number 2 is going to be for Daniela. What would you name a new team or franchise? Again, so the fan asked just for the name of the team or franchise. I also want to know, what city would you pick for a new team or franchise?
That's what I was going to say, Carly. That's kind of a vague question because you got to give me what's the sport? What city are we in?
Let's say hockey in honor of Seattle Kraken.
Okay, hockey in what's a city that doesn't have hockey right now? I can't even think. I gotta go. San Diego. Let's get some. I know California has enough hockey teams, but I mean, San Diego's amazing. So I don't know. Just the Surfers, the San Diego Surfers, the San Diego Ice Surfers. Oh, that's pretty good. I like that. All right. Hey, I mean, if I have millions of dollars, I would totally be the co-owner, but again, I don't. So maybe someday. So I dig it. San Diego Ice Surfers.
Dig it. All right. Third question is coming to you, Art. This is my favorite. The most random question I think I've ever gotten on Let's Socialize. Okay, are you ready for this one? Would you rather live in the ocean or outer space? Speaking of San Diego ice surfers.
Well, this is kind of a James Bondish kind of question. You know, if I were an evil Bond villain, would my lair or whatever that word is be underwater, or would I be out in space? Well, I'll tell you what. You know, we don't know much about underwater either. You know, I mean, it's so deep and water pressure and all that. There's a lot of parts of the ocean that have been unexplored. You know, we don't know what's living down there. You know, who only knows? You know, Aquaman could be real for all I know. Space is really intriguing. I just think that even though you're underwater and you're still on Earth, that would be kind of a cool place. It's really dark down there. The pressure. I'm a pretty good swimmer, but I would think I would rather be out in space, in outer space. I mean, I've been accused of being spacey most of my life, but I would like to see Earth from that perspective. You know, look at the stars. I think that being someplace where very few human beings have been, and yes, I do believe we landed on the moon. I think that would be something very, very unique. So I'm going to go outer space.
Outer space. I dig it. All right, guys, we are sending Art to space. I'll see if we can fit that in the budget somewhere. All right. Last but not least, one of the fans wants to hear your best roar. So your best Tigers roar. So Daniela, we'll start with you. Make it a big one. And then Art, we're going to hear yours.
I have to roar right now. Who sent this in?
Yeah.
I wish we had the name. Oh, wait. Look at this, guys. My mask fits perfectly. Look at. Okay.
Here you go.
Yeah, I'm messing this up. This is good. This is great.
Live
Art, I hope you're not practicing. That's cheating. Okay, ready? Here I go. This is the most embarrassing thing I think I've ever done on live anything. Okay, so here we go. Roar!
Oh my God! Yeah, you know what, Daniela? Do it. That was not very good. Do it without the mask. Do it without the mask. I mean, no, because a roar. Part of a roar is not only the sound, but you want to show your teeth. You know, you're trying to say to this potential predator or whatever, hey, you know, you show your teeth. You know, you got to show you. Yeah, they're like that. And then the sound. I mean, that was menacing. You put on that. You put on your mask. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, is that really a mask? Or, well, you know, what's in, you know, she take a pair of her shorts and cut it up. I mean, what's going on here? So that looked good. You want me to roar? Okay.
Yes, Art.
You know, I have a lot of
excited.
I have a lot of cats, so I know that first of all, you get a little tense because you're ready and you're starting to get mean. And you're starting to flare up. You're like, it's like, come near me. Don't come near me. Don't come near me, or I'm about to pounce on you. You better start running. And then you just sit there. You're going. And then you go, ah! Ah! That's a roar.
I think you just blew the speakers on my laptop.
You know, one time years ago, they had me.
Going out of my eyes. I'm not sure if I'm scared or.
I think you'd be running. One time, they had me cut like Go Wings. As a matter of fact, I still think they played it in the arena when they'll play a song. There's, you know, you hear over the arena at Little Caesars and now at Little Caesars and at the Joe, that Go Wings. That's actually my voice. And what's funny about that is I didn't know that. And I went to a Red Wing game and I'm sitting next to Dan Miller at, you know, up in the press box. This is at Joe Louis Arena, and they're playing like Red Wings, my Red Wings or something. And then, or they announce the lineup, and then you hear this Go Wings. And I look at Miller, I go, man, that voice sounds familiar. He goes, it's you, idiot. It's you. And so, and I can remember this was a loud Go Wings. I screamed so loudly. And I mean, I was, the old General Chuck Keller was the one. This was back in 1270, the sports station days. I screamed so loud, and I obviously pinned the meter, that I burst a couple of blood vessels in my throat, and I tasted blood for days. I mean, it was just, it was, so moral of the story, kids, when you're screaming and people want you to do a roar, take it down a notch, because if you go full force, you could burst a blood vessel or two, and and it hurts, and you're gonna bleed, and blood. I don't know why vampires love blood so much, because it is not a good taste.
Okay. I don't even know what to
Carly,
say. Right
do not think that you're getting out of this without roaring, because I will keep us on this thing until we get a roar out of you. So
out of time. So that's all for Let's Socialize.
No, you're not. Come on, Carly.
Roar.
Carly, this is an opportunity to pat yourself on the back. Once you put look, your roar is going to be better than Daniela's. I think we know that right now. So why don't you just so why don't you just roar?
I have a story. So growing up, my favorite movie of all time.
Wait,
okay.
What your favorite movie of all time?
You guys do this to me every time. My favorite movie of all time growing up was The Lion King. I thought I was Simba. So instead of talking, I would roar at people. And it wasn't just like, rawr, it was like really like from within, kind of scary. So let's see if I can do it again. I think that's so embarrassing. I don't know why I started this. Okay. Rawr. I can't.
Mine was good, Art. Compared to Carly's, mine was good this time.
Well, you know what? I almost have to give it to you, Daniela. Let me ask you, what do you two think a roar is? Roar. You might as well just say the word roar. I mean, this is an emotion. I mean, you got to well it up. It's got to come from deep inside. You got to pour it all out of your heart and soul. I mean, when an animal is roaring, it means business. It means business. And so, I think you've got homework for this weekend, both of you.
Honestly,
on Tuesday, you're gonna have to. Oh yeah, well, but you are on camera, and so on Tuesday's show, we're gonna have a re-roar where both of you are gonna have to roar again. My roar. Yes, no, you have to. You owe it to the Tigers. You need to roar again.
I don't know where it started.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was lovely. Let's end on that note.
We will. Thank you, Carly. To Let's Socialize for presenting. I'm sorry for Triple A for presenting Let's Socialize. Sorry, I'm thinking about my roars right now. I'm getting all the words mixed up. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. Art, speaking of roars, the Tigers will hopefully be roaring their way to another victory tonight as they wrap up the series with the Kansas City Royals. That game starts at 7:10 tonight. You can watch it on Fox Sports Detroit, or you can tune in to 97.1 The Ticket and listen to Dan Dickerson. I guess during this one, I'll be practicing my roar. I don't really know. I don't know how this came about. I don't know who asked that question, but I am going to be practicing my roar.
Yes. Well, yeah. Now in hindsight, your roar wasn't that bad, except you had a mask on, an alleged mask. I'll say that your
How is this alleged? This is a mask.
Just honest to God, you didn't go into your underwear drawer and just cut something up today. I mean, that's a weird mask.
Because of you, I only wear red underwear, and we didn't even get the fit.
Well,
so.
I'm never far away from my red underwear.
Throw that out.
It's been washed.
One more thing to remind you guys of before we close out the show for today. There is a blood drive being held at Little Caesars Arena this Tuesday, August 4th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. You do have to make an appointment, so visit redcrossblood.org and enter the sponsor code LCA313. Again, that is this coming Tuesday, August 4th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Visit redcrossblood.org to schedule your time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Word on Woodward today. Remember, we are here every Tuesday and Thursday. Like, subscribe, turn on your live notifications, and you won't miss a single second of the Word on Woodward. Again, thank you for tuning in. Go Tigers, and we will see you guys next Tuesday.